And we are live, guys. Welcome to yet another live stream from Oslo, Norway, on the Men of High Value channel, and my name is Joseph Darling. Today we're going to talk about money. Today we're going to talk about cutting your expenses. This is something that is very tricky for people. They have a hard time cutting down their expenses because they do not manage their money well. They don't track their money. If you think about any world athlete, let's talk, for example, track and field, since we're talking about tracking. Let's say you want to run the 100 meters or 200 meters a specific time frame. Well, you'll have to do it first one time to see how well you're doing. So if you run the 100 meters in, for example, 15 seconds, okay, we're talking about really bad runners here, but if you do that in 15 seconds, then you need to look at what you can improve. Okay, well, I did it 15 seconds, now the next day, let's see what my record will be. Well, maybe I can manage to do 14.5 seconds, or 14 seconds, or 13.5 seconds. But you know you have to track. You have to track everything in order to improve the thing that you're doing. So how do we do that with our finances? You have to start locating or seeing on your accounts, seeing how much you spend on every single category. You need to start tracking. I didn't do this for the longest of time, and I call myself an entrepreneur. That's not good. So I guess I started 2.5 years ago to start tracking things, and that's when things started happening. I quit my job for like 6 months after that. You know, even though I'm not financially free yet the way I want to be, life is a lot more exciting, and I enjoy life a lot more than when I had a full-time job. So, are you tracking how much you spend every single month, and how much you have and how much you are spending in each category? So what are my categories, for example? I would have a category for example, rent electricity. I'll put that in one category, and I'll put the number of how much I spend a month a little bit more than what I spend in rent. Okay, so this could also be if you own a house. I would say if you own an apartment or a house, I would say get rid of it in quotation marks. The reason why I said get rid of it in quotation marks is because if you live there yourself, then I don't recommend that. Okay, you can look at a lot of videos about that, but we just don't know where the market is going to take us right now. So you want to make sure that you don't... I recommend that you read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Understanding that your house is not an asset, it's a liability if you live there yourself. If you have someone else living in your apartment and you are actually making positive cash flow from it, then money is going inside your pocket instead of out of your pocket. Now that's a much better way to live. And so I would say that if you own an apartment or a house, I would say find someone to live there as soon as possible, and then move out, and then create and then find another place to rent. Don't buy. Okay? If you're gonna buy a second house or second apartment, then have someone else live there too if the regulations in your country allows that. Alright? Because there's so many benefits to that. I still rent. People are saying like, oh, but you're throwing money outside the window. And if you own a house, then you could, you know, you're paying down your house. Yes, but you have to realize that if you own a house, you owe like $100,000s of dollars, or in Norwegian kroners where I live, you owe millions of kroners to the bank. you owe them money. You're basically slaving now away basically half of your life or more to the bank. Okay, this is not what the topic was going to be about, but let's see. We're talking about rent. I'll explain the thing about house and liability the next time or another time. But anyway, we're talking about expenses, we're talking about cutting your expenses, and so you have the rent, you have the house, and then you have basically your food and everything else. Now, what I've done lately, okay, this is not what I did before, but what I've done lately is I've taken my food budget. Okay, so you have your food budget, what you spend approximately every single month, and you'll notice an average that you have over the course of the next few months as you start tracking. Okay, so you know how much you're spending on food every single month. This is the variable one. This is the one that goes up and down depending, okay? But it kind of keeps going up, okay, because of inflation, because the food shops are increasing their prices 5%, sometimes 10%, sometimes 2%, but you know the drill. So I would set an amount for food, okay, and then I would increase that amount a little bit so that you're comfortable with getting food. Food is important. You have to be able to buy enough food for yourself and for your family if you have a family. But if it's just yourself, I still feel that it's important that you eat high quality food in order to keep your energy going for what you're going to accomplish with me over the next 12 months. You want to be able to work 8-hour days, 10-hour days, 12-hour days, and sometimes 15-hour days. If you don't have a family, there's no reason for you not to work 15-hour days and yet have a quality of life. Okay, so put your budget higher, a little bit higher than what you would normally spend on food. And now take away all the other categories of life and put that inside that expense box of food or family expenses or living expenses. So basically now you've got two categories. You've got your housing and you've got your food expenses. And those are the only things that you have. The rent stays constant, and then you have your variable, which is your food expenses, and this one you keep no matter what at that level. You don't increase ever. You never go beyond what you set. You've given yourself an extra buffer by putting it higher than your normal expenses of food, and now your goal is then to start cutting out everything in your life that sucks, that will not take you to your future self that you want, and that will not make you happy in the long run. So for example, what would you cut if you don't have enough money left? Cut out your smoking. Cut out your tobacco use in general. Cut out the alcohol. Cut out any other thing that you know is destroying you and will not make you happy long term, which is a short-term gratification. It's to stabilize your emotions. Let's forget all of that. Let's go all natural over the next few months, okay? Take away everything that you really don't need, okay? Because that is going to help you to succeed. That's going to help you to become emotionally stable by choice, and it's going to help you to cut your expenses drastically. So let me give you an example of a friend of mine who I'm recommending continuously to do this, okay? He's still struggling with finances, you know, just like most of us. And what I recommend that he does is that he basically sleeps at his work, okay? He's a self-employed guy. He has some, he has a shop, a store, and I'm telling him, just sleep there, okay? You have your gym next to you, just go there and shower. You need a place to have food, well, he basically can do that there, at his home. And you've basically cut your expenses massively by doing that. Why have a shop and then have a place to live and having to pay rent both places? Doesn't make any sense. So, you know, of course, he's still not done it. You know, there are obstacles in this life, blah, blah, blah. But I'm saying, man, if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, you don't have a family yet, man, cut your expenses. It will make your life so fantastic. in the long run. Alright, we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow. I'll see you again tomorrow. This is the High Value channel, and my name is Joseph Darling.